Well, welcome to episode one of Real Men of Martial Arts. It's going to be hosted by Troy Clayton and me, your co host, Frank Whittington. And today we're going to just start off with an introduction, how Troy and I each got into martial arts, and then we'll go from there. Troy, if you want to go ahead and start, feel free.
Sounds like a plan. So I've been in martial arts for going on 25 years. I think I started back in '99. I think it was February of '99 because I remember I was 14 and I had been begging my dad to let me take martial arts for about a year. And if you knew my dad, you knew that he didn't do anything on a whim. I remember that he vetted you. I remember that he
Yeah.
vetted Ron and put a lot of thought into it before he ever let me join. But I remember that February of '99, and that was an interesting turn of events when that happened. So
In what way?
a lot of it had to do with just where I was at as a teenager. I was the youngest of
Okay.
five boys, so I was the one that got picked on all the time, and I wasn't I wasn't that outgoing kid. I was the one that, just did what I had to do and did the bare minimum and got by and, you know, lived in a small town of 500 people. So you really didn't have a life. You just, you just did what you did. I spent most of my time working with my dad and, you had like in a town of 500 people, you had two friends, you know? So martial
Yeah.
arts was my thing. That became my escape from small town boredom.
Kind of
Um,
your outlet then, huh?
Yeah, sports wasn't a big thing when I was coming up. Now, my brothers, sports was something that they had. That was an option they had. But when I kind of got to the age of sports, they was starting to die out, and the school system closed down. Everything merged with other schools. So if I wanted to do sports, I had to drive a half an hour to get there, twice a day. Because back then, out practices were twice a day. Not
Mm-hmm.
like today where everything's simplified and they do one thing. And back then they actually took sports serious. Sports other than football, so to speak. So
Well, what was your earliest inspiration of your interest in martial arts? What was it that led you to want to go down that path, as opposed to other things you could have done with your spare time?
um well, you got to understand, growing up in the '80s and '90s, that was the golden era of action movies, tough guys.
Mm-hmm.
So you spend a lot of time in a town of 500 people. You spend a lot of time watching movies or doing, stuff like that. There was nothing else to do. Of course, we played outside all the time, but once the sun went down, you didn't have anything else to do. So,
Right.
Rambo movies and Rocky movies and Terminator movies and just, tough guys in general. That was the golden era of it. So everybody wanted to do something. And I remember me and my dad would watch Philip Reed movies, Best of the Best. And that
Oh yeah.
movie, oh yeah, yeah, Philip Reed, that was the man that, like, boom, I want to do that. You know, I started in boxing naturally because Rocky, you know, but then I found out I wanted to do the other stuff. I wanted to do the kicks and the flashy stuff, and Philip Reed was where
Right.
it was at. I loved watching his stuff. So that was really my motivation to get into it at the time, was just like, I want to do what Philip Reed does, you know. And most people
Well,
that weren't
let's
around in
talk
the '80s
about
and '90s don't know who Philip Reed is.
that's a fact.
You
Yeah,
know,
they know more of the modern day MMA fighters and the guys that are in the cages right now. we
yeah,
we had to kind of draw our inspiration from Hollywood back in those days.
yeah.
Uh, do you remember your first class, your first martial arts class?
I do. I do. My first martial arts class was with you, and I remember learning that I didn't know near as much as I thought I knew. You
I
know,
think we all go through that.
I remember being a fairly decent kicker. You know, I wasn't great. I didn't have a technical side, but being 14, you know, you're young, you're limber.
Yep.
I remember being able to kick. I remember being able to, you know, see you do it and mimic it pretty easily. So that's, you know, my first class is when I realized that martial arts was, you know, I'm made for martial arts. It was easy for
Right.
me. I never had to think about how to do anything. I watched it, I could break it down and I could do it. You know,
Yep.
of course, there's always that time of perfecting technique, but the mental side was easy for me. I never really got frustrated from not being able to do anything.
Right. Yep. Well, I remember I started in 1986, and it was in about it was November, and a little pamphlet had come around the school. You know, a lot of them would be like, "Hey, join Boy Scouts, join the baseball team." Well, this one was come to the YMCA and start in karate today. And it took a little bit of convincing with my parents as well, more for them seeing it as a violent sport, a violent action. And when they finally did allow me to sign up, so that was probably back in 2 or 3 months before I ever actually took my first class. But man, I can remember my stomach was in butterflies the first time I showed up to a class. I was 9 years old, and the classes then were pretty good size. You know, there might be 20 to 25 students in a class, and it was a good mix of like youth and adults all in the same class. And that was my introduction. And the reason I decided on that was I was not what I considered to be very athletic. I didn't know anything about the rules of team sports. I had tried a couple of them and did not do well. I was more of a bench warmer. So I thought of it as a way of exercising, but there was nobody else to blame for my faults. I was my own team in karate,
You know,
and I really
I
appreciate that part of it.
I agree with that. And you know, now that you mention that, I can kind of look back on the same thing, and it's like I can remember doing sports, baseball, basketball, soccer. I played a little bit. I didn't play football on a team, but I played football, you know, with friends and stuff like that. When I was in school, you know, when you had your lunch break, that was your time to play football. And I
Right,
remember being, you know, I was really good at that stuff because I was an athletic kid. I was fast. I could run. I was, you know, I had agility, but I didn't. None of it intrigued me. It was, you know, I always hated the fact that when we did, you know, soccer and basketball and all that, we would lose because of one person that was lazy that didn't want to put in the work, and
right.
that
You're only
that
as good as your weakest
infuriated.
link.
Yeah, and that infuriated me, and it was like, God, you know, I'm sitting here putting in the work. We're doing what we're doing, and you're not. You know, I understand it's little league stuff, it's kids, but I always had that mentality. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it. And so I agree with you in that. And now that you think about it, you know, that was another thing that really intrigued me about martial arts, because with martial arts, if I failed, there was nobody to blame but me, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. And I think that's what makes a good martial artist is that recognition. You know,
Yeah.
you can't blame necessarily your coaches. You
Mm,
can't blame your instructors. You can't blame anybody if you miss a block and get kicked in the head. You miss the block,
yeah.
you know? And I really value that in karate. I
Yeah.
value that in all martial arts. So that definitely held my attention for longer than any other type of sport or anything that I had done leading up to that point, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Um, you know, and I don't know. I was always the person. I don't know if it's because I was the youngest of five. You know, my dad was the guy that was like, if you're gonna do it, do it. You know, don't. There's no need
Right.
to half-ass anything you do. And I can remember, you know, talking about, you know, our goal topic of men of martial arts. a lot of that boils down to, the role models that you have. My dad was a man's man. He knew nothing about martial arts, but he loved watching martial arts. That was his thing. Me and him, action movies. That was
Sure.
us. That's what we did. That was our bonding. Him and my brothers worked on cars. Of course, me and dad worked on cars, but it wasn't the same. It was we bonded over action movies. And I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole right now, but looking back on it with all the different things I've done in my life, if you really boil it down, it goes back to conversations me and my dad had watching action movies. you know, um,
Sure.
and a lot of that is those little conversations like that's what creates the drive or the mentality of being a man. I mean, you look at guys like Sylvester Stallone and his stuff. Just the question is, does he even realize that there are, you know, two generations of men in this world that shaped what they thought manhood was supposed to be off of him and his movies. You know,
Right. Yep. And the movies he put out.
yeah. So
Great.
it's just interesting to me how that all unfolds. You know. So what about you? I mean,
Yep.
you
I
go, as far as you go
it-
with it, what got you um, interested in all that with the
man,
martial arts?
I would say it was the same thing. It was the cinema. It was the Karate Kid movie
Mm-hmm.
that came out shortly before I started taking classes. It looked so interesting, and the good guy wins at the end, and for whatever reason, I resonated with that character. At 7 and 8 years old when the movie came out, uh, I really liked the Mr. Miyagi character in the movie, as
Yep.
far as that mentor figure, and that's what I was looking for. I was looking to find that kind of a bond in life, and it did come to fruition. I found that in martial arts. I found that with multiple people that I trained with, and that led into even my work life. I would approach it the same mentality, um, with focus and discipline, and trying to do my absolute best regardless of what everyone around me is doing, and carry that into my day-to-day life. So it was definitely resorting back to movies and cinema, and what we were presented as what men are and how they develop into what they are.
Yeah.
And now that I've got a few more years under my belt, so to speak, creeping into my fifth decade of life, I've had a lot more to reflect on, and I'm sure everybody's kind of caught on to the fact that I was an assistant instructor and teaching at the time you came in, so I had a few years ahead of you. Um, but I do remember it being important to instill some of those values early on. Like make sure that I led by example and showed people how to be disciplined, how to show up on time or early, how to put in 110% of every class, regardless of the conditions around us. And you and I both know our school, and I'm going to use air quotes, was it was a little short of luster. It wasn't the prettiest, it wasn't the most pristine or well put together, but we made do with what we had because it's all that we had.
I
And
tell I tell my students all the time when they ask about my coming up, and it's like, guys, I can tell you about the school I had, that where we did, you won't believe it. You know, it and it is. I mean, I've had to take trips. I go back up north to see family, and I'll take pictures of it. And it's like, yeah, this was our school, and I'm like,
that little door on the side of that
that,
building.
yep, the
We went in,
yeah, and it's like,
and I had no air conditioning.
no, no, there was nothing. There wasn't even airflow. We didn't have windows.
no windows. We had a fan on occasion,
On
uh,
occasion.
but it was a challenge. It was a challenge to. I mean, in the long run, I think it made us a little stronger. It made us our cardio was probably a little better than most. We were able to do a lot more than what we would have in cushy conditions, um, and it helped shape who we are now. You know, I
I
definitely like the comforts, but I can do without them.
I tell you what, I've got my school. You know, I've got a nice little school here, and most of the time I don't even turn the air conditioner on. And my kids are like, "God, it's hot in here." And I was like, "Guys, you ain't got a clue. You know, if you ain't sweating, you're gonna be sweating anyways. You may as well just start off when you walk in the door. You
That's
know,
exactly right. Get warmed
uh,
up now.
and I mean, we didn't, and even at that, we didn't really even have warm up time. I mean, really, from the time we walked in, it was let's go. You warmed up
Yep.
by doing, whereas now,
Yeah.
you got your little warm up period and the kids do this and that. And ours was, nope, put your gloves on, get in there, you'll warm up as you get hit.
Yeah.
We had the puking bush.
That's fact.
Remember the puking bush?
With that,
Remember the puking bush?
we all spent time there.
Hey, that bush is gone now. I think we killed it.
We probably did with stomach acid.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Well,
you either puked from overworking or you puked from the heat, one or the other.
man. Well, moving forward, you continued like I took and kind of dropped out of martial arts. We did a breaking demonstration for a state fair, and I did a lot of damage to my right hand. I don't know if you remember that, but
Oh, I
it
remember. I got it
was
on video somewhere.
well, just a long story short, I cut my hand on a glazed brick during a demonstration, and it kind of sat with me for a long time. And I noticed that I was coming less and less to a point where I decided to take a career path that I needed to make sure that my hands were in good shape all the
Yep.
time. So I just kind of drifted back in martial arts, and you continued on. You sought after multiple instructors and instruction, and different theories and methods. And so we probably have about a 20-year gap now from when I was actively uh, practicing to today. Maybe even longer than that. Maybe more like 22 or 3 years. But in hindsight, you basically did the leapfrog of advancement well beyond what I was teaching way back then when you started. And if you want to go ahead and maybe elaborate on that a little bit, some of the things you've done since you and I trained together.
Yeah. You know, and I don't know if maybe because it's Father's Day right now, we're shooting this, and I'm wanting to go back, but you gotta understand my leapfrogging in you and my sticking with it, um, again boiled down to a conversation that me and my dad had, and I remember this conversation because it's the most life changing and path defining conversation I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asking my dad, first off, let me go back. You have to understand that a lot of kids and a lot of people today and in my generation, they didn't have great dad role models. That's that's kind of era that started going away. My dad was the greatest role model you could ever ask.
Sure,
Um,
I agree.
so when I had conversations with him, it was, how far do you think we can take this? How far can I do? How good can I get? You know, that kind of stuff. And long story short, his answer was, is it your passion? Yes, it was my passion. I mean, I trained with you and I trained with Ron most of the time 7 days a week, right? Normally 2.5 hours
Right.
a day. So that was what I did. I didn't go out partying with guys after school. I didn't, there's a lot of things that I put aside so I could train. And my dad's answer to that was, if it's your passion and it's something you want to do and you're going to do it for the rest of your life, make it your priority. And when he said that, it was like, well, okay, that's a priority, so I can do this and, wait till after school, do this, yada, yada. And
Sure.
he was like, no, he said, you don't understand. Don't make it a day-to-day priority. Make it your life priority. He said, if you're going to look at this as something that you're going to do, it needs to be more important than everything else you're doing in a day. He said, you go to school because you have to go to school. You need an education. But what will college teach you about martial arts? Nothing. What is college going to teach you about becoming a better martial artist? Nothing. So why would you waste your time with college to pursue what you're doing? Now, I understand there's a business aspect to that. That's besides the point. But the point that he was making is if you're going to do it with everything you got, make it your priority, and then your other stuff goes on the back burner, right? At that time, we were big into building cars. We were big into, engines. I come from a very automotive family. We grew up, street racing and off-roading and all that. And I got brothers that went that route. I got brothers that went, a completely different route that had nothing to do with cars. I focused on martial arts. That was my thing. And that led me to competitive fighting, and it led to teaching and owning schools and all that different stuff. And because I've made that such a massive priority, and you understand, even my relationship with my wife based around martial arts. When we were dating, it was, hey, we can go out on a date, but this is what I do. This is my schedule. I take it very serious. So if you want to go out on Friday night, that's fine. I'll pick you up. We're going to go train first. You can sit and watch. You can join in if you want. And then after we train, we can go out and do this. And
right.
She was supportive of that. And that's the whole thing is, if you're going to do something like this, you got to make sure that the support system is there. And my support system was, my dad, my mom, my brothers could have cared less. They had their own lives. My wife, my girlfriend at the time, that whole system. And that is why I was able to do the leapfrog that I did.
Sure.
So
I think
that's a long-winded answer, but
I think it leads into another good topic, though, and that is when you find that the Japanese terms ikigai, when you find that thing that drives you, and surround yourself with the people that support your interest, and even make that a common goal, you'll find that those bonds become much stronger. Your relationship with your wife and your partner are going to be much stronger when you have those commonalities and common goals at the end of the day. I've definitely been in relationships where that was not in the works. It wasn't part of the framework of the relationship, and obviously they're former relationships for that reason. So those bonds that we make as men, where we have common goals, maybe we have less overall friends as far as large friend groups, but the core friends that we have are always going to be there in some capacity.
And to emphasize on that, back to another conversation I had with my dad that stuck real big is you said your core friend group. You really don't have friends. Friends don't exist, right? Once you understand that, you'll understand that you don't have any limitations as to what you're doing. Now, you do have people that are outside of your blood relatives that become family, right? And that's a bond that you have, like you and me. We're beyond friendship level.
I agree.
We're close as brothers, and closer than I am with some of my brothers. So friends don't exist. You have blood relatives and you have family. Friends slow you down. you know, and that's
Yeah,
just a
I
mentality
can
that I
agree with
stuck with,
that.
you know. That's a mentality that I had since I was a teenager. I have family members that are, you know, we talk. I mean, I got brothers that I talk to twice a year. You know, we have separate
Yeah,
lives. We don't bother each other. When we're in the same place at the same time, dude, we have the best time. But we don't bother each other, you know. Um, but friends are not where it's at. You create family when you're with people of an equal passion. And the passion doesn't have to be in the same thing, but
sure.
passion attracts passion, you know.
I
Um,
agree. Yeah, and steel sharpens steel.
yeah, I mean, some of my closest family that I have are competitive bodybuilders. We go out with them all the time, me and my wife. I'm not a bodybuilder, but that doesn't matter. They have a passion for the way they train. I have a passion for the way I train, and that coincides, you
Sure.
know. Um, and that's one of the things that too many people, I think, try to find people in the same um, lane as them, and that's not it. You need to find people that just have a passion for what they're doing, and that goes back to
Sure.
a support system. You know, you got to have that support system, whether it's this or that. You know, my wife, her passion is not martial arts. She has other things. But you know, as we talked, as a man, you have to sit there and support her the way she supported me.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
My wife and I, we have we're the opposites attract couple.
mm-hmm.
We didn't really have anything necessarily in common, but it has allowed us to have a more interesting relationship because we have more to talk about. We divide it down the middle, and she listens to what I enjoy, and I listen to what she enjoys, and we have more to communicate on. And I appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
So, when we were talking about friendships, I think a lot of friendships are just kind of there's a give and take.
Yep.
One friend needs something from the other person, and then vice versa. And then from there, you're communicating with a person more often as this trade relationship that we call friendships. So
Mm-hmm.
I will agree with you that, once you supersede that level, then you have dove into building your family ship outside of your bloodlines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those seem to be a little stronger and a little greater than our frivolous, online friendships and
Yep.
pass by friendships and work friendships and those things.
Yeah. You know, I got a one of my family, and not bloodline family, but one of my family. He always explained it as we have our clan. This is our clan. You know, and that's really what it is. If you get down to the brass tacks of it, is it's more clan based than anything. You don't have to
Mm,
be a blood relative, but you have a clan and you do what you do for the clan. And I like his take on that. It was interesting when he broke that down that way, and it's like, you know, that makes perfect sense, because just because you're friends with somebody doesn't put them in your clan. You know. Now, me,
right.
most of my clan is martial arts based or fitness based, because that's what I strive to. Um, I think that if you're going to be successful at something, you have to surround yourself with like-minded people, right? So, I mean,
I
I like,
agree.
you know, I'm successful at martial arts. Um, I like fitness. Most of the people that are around me are either martial arts oriented or fitness oriented. You know, um, there's times that I'm in a group of people that are martial arts oriented, and I don't want anything to do with them. You know, so it's not just martial arts people you got to surround yourself with. It's people that think like you, that strive like
Yeah.
you.
And at this stage of my life, I see that more as like meeting people on the same frequency.
Yeah.
All through life we have different interests and different frequencies that we participate in. And when you start getting to know yourself better as a human being, and you start realizing your own thoughts and ideas, and we get past regurgitating other people's thoughts and ideas as our own box that we like to be in, well, then you start meeting people on a frequency level, and that's where you're going to get those deep rooted bonds, because, well, a lot of times you've already been through the same traumas in life. You've been through the same failures and same successes, and it just makes it to where it's easy. It's not a difficult work to maintain these friendships. They don't need to be nourished every single day, where one person feels like, oh, I didn't hear from so and so, they must be mad at me now, and we can rise above all of the ego. Not
and that boils down to, from, and whether it's male or female, I'm just gonna use this term generally, but that's a man being a man. I don't need anybody to check up on me on a day-to-day basis. I don't need to check up on everybody on a day-to-day basis. I don't have that false sense of security to where this has to be done this way.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's something that kind of gets ingrained in us, especially in this technology age, where it's so easy to check in on somebody, and it's so easy to stay connected. So much so that I've made it a point in my life to disconnect a little bit from all the modern technology to an extent. Even for like this particular meeting today, I had to download a program to be able to communicate with you. But it's been peaceful, and I'm at peace with where I'm at in my life, and I hope that everybody else out there gets to that stage in their life to let go of the things that don't matter, and stop defending things that they don't necessarily even agree with, but it makes them more popular amongst their quote unquote friend groups to be, in alignment with whatever the friend group as a whole says that they should be doing. That
well, and that kind of goes, if you look at the social media side of things, and that's what we talk about, like the difference between friends and family. When you deal with social media friends are only friends while you're liking their stuff. They got to have those clicks. They got to have that stuff. Their whole social media BS persona of how great they're doing, and 99% of them aren't doing great at all. They're covering up, their inadequacies with their social media fakes.
Their presence on the line.
I've got nothing against social media presence. If you want to do that, and that's your thing, that's your thing. But you know what? Be honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I for one I can admit 100% that I played many characters online because I didn't know who I was as a man. I didn't know my role in life, other than the culmination of all the things that I had done. But that doesn't mean that's who I am. You know what I mean? Once I learned that I like learned who I am as a man, then I was able to be more authentic outwardly, and that's when you start seeing people drop off more rapidly, and being okay with it, I think, is where you find peace and joy in life.
Yep. Once you get rid of the headaches and the fake people, because fake people just bring fake affection, and you've got to purge all that.
And fake attention. I think that's what a lot of people are seeking. I know, there again, speaking from experience, I was just seeking the attention and validation from social media and from what posts I made. So I would, make things, make posts, and if they didn't get enough likes or enough response, then I would delete them. And I can remember being like, so small-minded. I go on little keyboard rampages about how disrespected I felt because people didn't like the way that whatever it was that I posted, which in the reality had nothing to do with the way I truly, truly felt inside.
And a lot of that I think, goes to part of being a man, right? Is realizing that, one, your feelings don't matter. Nobody cares, right? Other than
Right.
your family, your feelings don't matter. So sitting there posting that crap online on about how you feel and this and that and blah blah blah, that just means that you're trying to cover some inadequacies that you have. You're not measuring
Absolutely.
up to yourself. And once you get to, like you said, once you get to that point to where that doesn't matter anymore, it's like I got lucky, and again, it's I'm going back to my dad, because my dad is the reason that I become the man that I've become and still working to become. Um, there's so much to where you would have conversations, and it was, okay, now suck it up, figure it out. He didn't always have the answer. Sometimes his answer was, okay, so figure it out. And it's okay
Mm.
to say that to people instead of trying to be the person that always has the answer. You just need to be the person that says, okay, suck it up, pal. You're a man. Move on.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
there comes a point where we realize the less that we feel we have to speak about everything that we are thinking,
Oh yeah.
the less fuel we're adding to the communal fire of negativity.
Yeah.
If we can just withhold our emotions for a little while, sit on them, and let them go, the happier
Yeah.
everyone around us is, because it's infectious. If you're in a bad mood, you're going to find everybody else in your family in some type of a mood. Everybody that you work with will eventually be in some type of a mood. And the same whenever people come into your space and they have some kind of let's say, a chip on their shoulder that day. Well, we all know it, but if you can hold it back a little bit, process it, sit with it, get to the root of why you feel so strongly that particular day before ever telling anyone, you might find that you're going to be you're going to grow just a little bit. You're going to expand a little bit because of it.
Yeah, and that a lot of people will tell you, it's not healthy to just bottle that stuff up. Sometimes you just got to bottle it up, like you said, sit on it a while, and just figure out, okay, is this really worth me sitting down and dealing with, or is it not even worth it? Just bottle it up and call it good and move on.
Sure. And there's other process. I mean, you can just jot it down on paper and
Yeah.
wad it up and throw it away, and never have to infect or offer it to any other human being out there, add it to anybody else's consciousness. Just write it down,
Yeah.
get rid of it, and move on with your day.
Have that two-sided conversation in your head and move on.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
That's one of the big things. And again, part of being a man, especially I think as a martial artist, as a man in general, as a dad, you have to. There are times that you have to literally suck it up. Uh, you know, not burden everybody with every little thing that you have. Now, I understand that there are some mental issues that people have to have conversations about. I'm not saying there isn't,
Sure.
but how many of those, say 100 conversations do you really have to have? I mean, if
I did.
you're
Yep.
if you're in that mental state to where you're contemplating certain things that shouldn't be contemplated, permanent solutions to temporary problems, then yeah, you need to talk to somebody. But
Sure.
most of the time, it's not that bad.
No, and I can relate to those because in my 20s and 30s I dealt with a lot of those heavy emotions,
Mm-hmm.
not understanding why I felt the way that I did, and carrying it with me everywhere, like a duffel bag on my back full of all the problems in my life. And it took a lot of self analysis to break down the root of all of those different things that caused me to feel that way, to feel inferior, and to feel like the world would be better without me in it. And, you know, all of those negative, low vibration emotions are completely unnecessary. And most of it, I think,
Uh-oh, I think we lost you. Try this again. All right, minor technical difficulty. We lost little Frank there for a minute, but we're back.
my phone got too dang hot.
It happens.
Well,
Staring at
like I say, I
that
forgot
sexy man like
that.
you.
We can just kind of move on. And honestly, we're working on our first hour, so we could just about work toward closing out for the afternoon.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, to sum it up, to be a man, learn to suck it up, move on.
that
You know.
that is it. But I think we covered our introductions today. We covered a little bit of our early history and what got us into martial arts today. We
Yeah.
had a little bit of chit chat about how to suck it up and sometimes just hold on to your emotions and sit with them. I feel like it was a pretty good opener for an episode one,
Yeah.
Real Men Arts.
Not bad. Not bad. Now we just got to figure out what we're gonna do for number 2.
I know. I got a few topics here,
All
but we
right.
do have a few down the pipeline with you and I and the AGKA as a whole, and some pretty exciting things going on, which hopefully we can elaborate a little bit more on in the next few episodes. But until then, let's see if we can figure out if we're savvy enough to get this thing uploaded and streaming, and then go from there.
That's right. We'll start fixing some of our lighting and our camera work.
There you go. It'll take a little practice, but we'll get this down.
All right, man. Well, hey, you have a blessed day. Happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day. Well,
Happy Father's Day to everybody that's listening. And hopefully we'll catch you on the next one.
all right, brother. Have a great day.
Yes, sir. You too.